Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast. We have Allan Dykstra with us today. Josh is CEO at the Work Revolutions, the founder of that company since more than 12 years. That's a lot of time, Josh. I see some YEC official member officially. That's a good sign. I love people that are members of that org, Young Entrepreneur Council. And yeah, you're a keynote speaker, you're a future of work activist, human energy guy, whatever that means. We're going to explore it. Sense maker and business philosopher. I'm a philosopher too. So, going to have fun today. Josh, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and what you're up to?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, thanks for chatting with me. This is going to be fun. I've only really done one thing for the last 20 years, Charles, which is to try to make work not suck for as many people as humanly possible. And that's kind of all I do. And I've done it. And I'm also kind of a serial entrepreneur. So I've done this in a bunch of different ways. Right? I've created a bunch of different businesses to try to do this, everything from coaching and, we've been coaching and training consultants, and we've been and I've done it myself, and I've done a lot of workshops, I've done a lot of assessments, and I built a tech company and like all these different things. But the overall theme is always the same. It's let's try to make work not suck so bad for people.
I like it. Pretty straightforward. Yeah, work sucks for most people, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm specifically opposed to 9 to 5 and corporations and how they enslave people. I'm not saying like all corporations are all the same, but must be pretty terrible to work for an org and follow orders for 10, 20 years and hit a midlife crisis. And that is if you don't hit the toxic boss in the midst of all of that. And I'm just not sure why that concept is still a thing. I'm pretty sure it's about to fall apart in the next 5 to 10 years with AI. What do you think?
Yeah, it seems like we're ripe for some pretty big changes. That's for sure. I thought we were going to see some more kind of systemic reforms, let's say, after the pandemic, right? And we started to see it for a little bit. There was a lot of bosses and organizations that were very kind all of a sudden, right? It was like, we care about your flexibility, we care about burnout. And so I thought that was going to be the starting point for something new, but it seems like we've kind of slid backwards now in the last couple of years. So yeah, I do think we're gonna see some big changes here in the next few years, for sure. Oh, looks like I might have lost you. Are you still there?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure what's up with. Thanks, StreamYard. Shout out to
Yeah.
StreamYard. What were you saying, Josh?
Yeah, we I don't know how much of that you heard. I've
80% of it.
Okay. Yeah, I do think we're in for some pretty big changes in the next few years. Yeah, as AI comes along. Yeah, how exactly that's going to look, I think remains to be seen, and depends a lot on us, right? Depends on what we decide to do with it. But yeah, it seems pretty clear. Big changes are coming, and change is the new constant.
Because I think AI is amazing as a founder, as an entrepreneur. I think it makes work incredibly more enjoyable because you have your personal assistant all the time with you, and it sort of adapts your personality, right? And like back then, I used to hire employees. They wouldn't have the same personality. They went into emotional turmoil sometime. And with my AI, I can move incredibly fast. I can get shit done. I can make more money. I can connect with folks like you, right? Like you're on this podcast because an AI outreach to you and an automation got a hold of you. And I think that's just great. In orgs, I do think they have assistants too. And hopefully the corporations will own that AI that they're chatting to. But I think it's sort of pushing these corporate people to just get maybe a side gig or something and freelance and go ahead. Hasn't there been a better time than now to launch a business and start having fun and connecting with your ikigai?
Yeah, it does seem like a great time for that, for sure. I was just meeting with a new friend of mine, and she calls our careers portfolio careers now, right? Because we're all kind of assembling, I think, different elements of our portfolios into different tasks, right? Different roles that we play for different gigs. And yeah, that just resonated with me a lot. So I think, yeah, that's absolutely a big part of what's happening. I think.
Because some companies are incredibly fun to work with, but I think they're very rare. Let's say that you work with the founder and the CEO, and he's just that maverick, that free flowing maverick, high IQ, high EQ. The org is 10xing, 100xing on a yearly basis. It's a rocket ship, right? Like that's a one in a lifetime experience, and it's nice to be part of that. Maybe you can get equity, maybe you can be your own self, maybe you can get shit done without anyone telling you really what to do, and you're just in a flow state daily. But isn't that like 1% of orgs out there? Let's call them tech startups, funded ones.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's a pretty small percentage. I mean, yeah, if you can get on that rocket ship, right, it is a fun ride to do, I'm sure. But yeah, most people probably won't have that experience. Most people, yeah, are either in small businesses or they're working for big companies, and yeah. So in those environments, I think it becomes really important for people to start to understand how to create their own flow states, right? So instead of relying on the environment around you to do it for you. That's why, so, in my headline there, you said I'm human energy guy. And so that's what I mean by this. So human energy is actually directly tied to flow states. And so what we do is we teach people how to get into a predictable, reliable flow state at work. So that's actually when you enjoy what you're doing, right? Kind of to your point. It's just that most people actually don't know how to create that, right? They look to all of these things out here to kind of do it for them. And that's really not how flow works. So you have to really connect it with what works for you. And most people have no clue how to make that happen inside a workplace. So yeah, that's a big skill that people can learn though.
I think it's just a massive disconnect with our human nature, and that disconnect starts at like 7 when we're forced into the education system, which sort of de-educates us from our human and playful and childish nature. It teaches us to have good grades, fit in the system, be a good little boy, and I never fit in that system for probably like 10 years of my life, which was not super nice. And I discovered entrepreneurship later on, which is my true go-getter human nature. I think we have found like massive comfort in this society, and comfort is nice, especially the survival part, right? Like you don't want to be killed when you go out there, but I think there's just too much comfort nowadays. You have a safe university, a safe diploma, safe job, safe food on the table, safe house, And I think a lot of people can get trapped into that. They're not challenging themselves anymore, and corporations sort of prey on that. They're even affiliated with the education system, and they're just like, oh, thanks for that nice robot that I can hire and slave for 10, 15 years, maybe make them believe they're going to be a partner one day. And yeah, I think that whole system needs a massive overhaul.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of the challenge there, Charles, is that they actually, these things don't actually feel very safe anymore for people, right? I think a lot of people live in these kind of jobs. They live in quite a lot of fear, that because it's been pretty clearly shown that these organizations have very little to no loyalty to employees, right? You could have been there for 20 years, and if you could be a casualty of the next layoff, that happens when we do a merger, or when we acquire somebody else, or when a new CEO comes in, right? Like nobody's safe. And so I think that's actually part of the big challenge here, is that a lot of people feel this unsafety, but they're not quite sure what to do instead. So I think that's what leads to a lot of the anxiety that seems to be in and around work right now. Is we know that we're not safe. We wish it was safe. We kind of like maybe took the job because we thought it would be safe, right? Maybe to your point, we want that, but I don't know that we're getting it, from most organizations.
That feels way safer than entrepreneurship, right? Like that is for sure. Like entrepreneurship, and what I'm referring to is the 80% of that is a safe salary, right? Like
Sure.
every 2 weeks you're getting paid. I mean, yes, you live in constant fear,
Mhm.
but I think it's in the background of losing your job, right? Like that's
Mhm.
never certain. And frankly, you don't control most of it, right? Even if you do well, if your department is not doing well, if you're not working with someone that is propelling you, the old gray hair at the top can decide to slash you off. But I think it's pretty toxic to have a biweekly salary. You're getting paid whatever. It's not directly linked to your performance, and it's too slow, right? Like just the
Mhm.
cycle. Me, if I perform well today, if I close a sale today, that's possible. I do it daily. I'm gonna get paid. If I satisfy that client, they might
Yeah.
buy more of my services. I might even get equity in their business. So my brain is like a heat-seeking missile for value, right? And by the way, it took me a very long time to get to that, right? Because unfortunately, I started in this world learning sales rather than product, right? And sales is easy; you can sell anything to anyone if you're convincing. But yeah, I sort of think that fortunately, I think right now entrepreneurship has never been that high. Like
Mhm.
even like if you're, I don't know, driving Uber, I still consider that to be entrepreneurship. You're being paid per ride, for example, and that's like a gateway into full entrepreneurship. And I do think that there's only one future, and that is that everyone is entrepreneurs, and people that are not entrepreneurs, they'll be on UBI or something. Agents are coming
Mhm.
like on Q3 this year, Q4, and agents, it's just like as an employer, I have the choice to either hire a human that is suboptimal or an agent that is learning faster, moving faster, making the right moves instantly, understanding my company through a scraping or an API call. So how will that change the job market according to you, if you agree with the premise, that is?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. So if I caught what you said you don't think there'll be anything but entrepreneurs in the future, and then yeah, everybody else on UBI or something. That's super
Because
interesting.
the entrepreneur umbrella implies like 10 super skills, right? Like
Yeah,
it's not just, hey, you're a good entrepreneur. No, it's that's you learn a bunch of meta skills being an entrepreneur, and you're coming back to
yeah,
your true human superpower, sort of.
yeah. What do you think that happens with the like the big organizations? What happens to them?
I think they will die. Well, I mean, they have huge coffins, right? But they will slash off pretty much like their full workforce, and that will create a humongous PR backlash for most of them. I'm not saying like everyone will try to actively destroy their ex-employers, but these entrepreneurs will start their own companies. They'll start competing with that ex-employer, and the only moat that these corporations will have is one, their brand, and two, their coffins. And yes, some of them, they do have like nice products, nice technologies, but that's mostly false. You know, when you compare, I don't know, a Nestle, all their shit products compared to like someone that would make a real high quality food product filled with nutrients locally, it's not
Mhm.
that hard to do that at scale. Of course, Nestle has the cash to do it at scale, but Nestle is mostly like I don't know, coercion, creating cheap products that they can push down to consumers to make money, right? And I think that's where capitalism has gone too far. So yeah, I'm biased, and I wish this would be true, right? And in some shape and form, what do you think will happen with corpse? And by the way, that's a contrarian view. I don't think most people agree with what I just said.
Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective that yeah, I haven't heard that much. So I think it's fascinating. Um, yeah, I think there's probably in my view that it's probably more somewhere in the middle. Like I
It's
think
more
you're onto some.
nuanced.
I think so. And because and I think you're onto some stuff there, right? I think in terms of yeah, there's going to be a revolution of sorts, right, inside these organizations as they, you know, get rid of people and those people go on to try new things and you know re kind of reset their priorities and kind of uh, you know, find themselves in new kinds of work. So I think that that part's probably right. I think it would be. I think it's going to be pretty difficult to to have some of these big organizations disappear, right? Like
I
they're
think the stock
just
market's gonna fall apart as well, and people
yeah
are gonna merge to a long term stock exchange by Eric Ries. Not sure if you've known that one, but stock exchange is very
yeah.
much responsible for these companies being held alive, right,
Mm.
and burning that much cash. And I think that's also gonna fall apart, or
Mm.
we're gonna have a more educated investors. I think that retail investors are so uneducated and they get wrecked all the time and they invest in stuff with no value. Um, but yeah, my next question for you, like Mr. Energy, Mr. Flow State, is: do you think that most humans can actually adapt to that revolution? Do you think that grit and that desire for more, that ambition, that entrepreneurship, do you think that is found in most humans, even humans at the bottom of the pyramid?
Yeah, yeah. The short answer is yes. I think most can be that, maybe want to be that, and I think this is where the environmental challenge becomes such a big one, is because the workplace container that most people work in is so disappointing, right? It really is. Like, we're like, so many people kind of end up in these, they come out of, university or whatever with a lot of optimism and how they want to change the world and make it better, and then they end up in these jobs that don't do that. And so, but I think that passion is still underneath there, right? I think that desire to do meaningful work, I think lives in everybody. And so if we can start to decouple the idea of job from what is meaningful work, I think that's probably part of what we're going to start to see also, like through this revolutionary process, is like as AI comes in, we're gonna have to contend with many more kind of high level philosophical questions of what do we actually want to do as humans? Like, what should we be working on? Um, and if if there is something like UBI, right? If we were able to kind of move in that direction, then it becomes even more of a question of like, what's a job for, you know? And I think hopefully we start to move our desires more towards this idea of meaningful work, because I think most everybody wants to work on something they find meaningful. They might call it a hobby, they might call it whatever, um, but I hope we can kind of move in that direction. And I do think most people have that, where they would like to work on something they find meaningful.
And is meaningful equal to valuable? Because I think we're so hooked to the notion of value and being valuable to society, which I think is amazing, right? Like, I mean, this computer that I'm talking to you on, someone built it.
Yeah.
This microphone, these headphones, this shirt.
Mm.
My parents brought me to this world, right? So I should give back. That's my purpose. That's my number one purpose as a human. But is meaningful equal to valuable? Like, let's say in a UBI future, you could just build shit that no one would use, but you would find meaningful, right? What do you think about that?
It's probably a spectrum, right? And I think it's a question of, right, this does get to the philosophical nature of value too, right? Because there's a whole lot of things when we say in an economic sense, these things are quote valuable to society. There's a whole lot of things that we as humans clearly find valuable that don't end up in that economic equation, right? So let's say we're measuring GDP or something, right? Like, there's no math in the GDP equation for taking care of your sick parent or taking care of your child
I
or
think there
your
is actually.
GDP. No.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
How?
you're taking your time off, one,
It's a
and
point
you're
against you in GDP.
sure, but you're buying medicine, for example. You're buying a caregiver, but like if you mean like personally, right? Yeah, you're right on that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's more like, yeah, on the personal side of these things, right? There's things that we as humans wouldn't say are inherently valuable. So let's say like going and experiencing nature, right? Is that valuable? Like as a human experience? Yeah, I think it is. Is that in GDP? No. Right. So that's kind of what there's a disconnect between the economic measures of value and what I think humans actually find inherently valuable. And so we've got to start to have some of that philosophical conversation as well. Uh, and that might actually start to happen, right? As we move, right? AI actually might start to help us have some of those conversations about what is meaningful, what is valuable. That's going to be really important for us to contend with.
Yeah, because the hiking example, you buy like boots, maybe poles, then maybe you pay the park. I'm not a believer that much should be free, but maybe that's because I've wired myself that way. Think and I'm very much part of this capitalism system, and I stand on probably like the 80-90% extreme end of capitalism. I'm hooked, I think it's fun. I think I struggled at first, right, when I entered this market, which is a good follow-up question for you. Like at because I have a school for kids that teaches them AI and entrepreneurship, right? And
Hmm.
one good reason why I started that is that at 18, I was at uni and sort of was pretty scared in like what was the next step, like how could I get into this market easily, and yet there was so much competition. I had so few skills, and I decided to take the entrepreneurship route. Just discovered I could make way more that route and I could have it my way, right? But do you feel that the next gens with like AIs, we've seen like in schools that they sort of prohibit AI, but every student's using ChatGPT nowadays, fortunately,
Hmm.
according to me, right? Do you think that they'll have a harder time getting into that market? Do you think that they'll make the step like I did, go straight into entrepreneurship, or what is going to happen in that job market from where you go from student to actual worker?
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's going to be a really messy middle period here, for the next 5 to 10 years, especially as our graduates kind of enter the job market and it is kind of like chaotic. Um, and out further than that, I would say it's really, really hard to even predict. So I've got a couple kiddos, they're almost 10 and 12 right now. And so I do think about this, right? I think about the future of work in the sense of like, what will my girls do? And usually most days I kind of land in the place of like, it's just too early to tell. Right. Like, and I'm in I'm in a position where I don't have to think about that quite yet. But yeah, if my kids are a little bit older, kind of entering the job market now, um, I think what's going to be really important is for us to really teach a lot of critical thinking skills and learning, like, and emphasize the importance of learning agility, right? So how fast can you learn? How fast can you change your mind? How fast can you um, update your skills, right? I think the whole game is probably about that, for any students entering the job market in the next 5 to 10 years. Um, and that's about all I think I can focus on right now with my kids, is really trying to teach them how to think, because there's just very little certainty in terms of the way of what this is going to look like. So, I mean, to your point about entrepreneurs, I think that everybody probably needs to adopt a lot more entrepreneurial mindset to be able to thrive in the coming decade.
Right. How old are they?
My kids are 10 and 12.
Did you put ChatGPT in their hands?
They've played around with a little bit at school, and we do a little bit here at home. So yeah, they're starting to get a sense of this. Uh, but there's also, they're still young enough to where I think it's pretty important for them to learn how to just write and think and construct, their own thoughts. So yeah, like there's a
I
little
think
bit of like,
AI can help them with that. I don't think AI has bad thoughts. That AI has like smarter thoughts than their teachers and 99.9% of humans. I think it's just like them. And it can even teach them meta skill, for example, like asking great questions, right? Because
mhm,
I think to my last point, I think as kids at school, they're taught to stop asking questions and just listen and do
mm,
what you're told. Um, I mean, it has changed since my time and your time at school for sure. It has improved, but not fast enough.
yeah,
We should just have ChatGPT in their hands, and they could spend a full day asking that thing questions and even talking to it. And of course, having social connections as well, like not just with an AI, right? But I think just like having them sit in a school is pretty outdated. Then ChatGPT is like a one can be a nice 1v1 teacher that learns everything about you. How the heck can a teacher track even
yep,
20 students, let alone one? Like ChatGPT has a better memory than a human, so it can just memorize everything about one person, and then
yeah.
it can tailor some kind of learning plan for them.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting future, no question. Some of that stuff comes online. I think the question is, then what happens with early childhood education, right? So is there a baseline level of skills that one should have? So it depends on what you're using it for, right? If you're using it for, in a teaching capacity or for someone to like think more critically, like, yeah, absolutely, right? That's great. If you're using it to just, write your paper for you, I'm not sure that's really, teaching the kids. I think writing is probably something they should still learn how to do.
Yeah, there's a next step to chat as well because it's a small screen interface, right? The teacher can move around, it can give like physical objects and can have people walk and follow it. So yeah, the robotic revolution will be quite interesting. Maybe in 5, 10 years from now, that one's a bit further in the future, but I think that will also change the landscape, right? Like right now with the tariffs and the illusion that we can bring back labor in the US and have like cheap products and pay people $30 an hour. I think like bots are gonna do that for sure. Like that's gonna happen, right? But that's like less jobs for humans.
No.
And I think that's gonna completely change the world once we can have robots to do
No.
boring things for us, like cleaning the house and
No.
yeah, stuff like that. So Josh, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, best place is probably my website. So it's joshallan.com. It's 2 A's and 2 L's in Allan. So it's JOSHALLAN.com. Or find me on LinkedIn. It's Josh. Yeah, you can search for Josh Allan Dykstra on LinkedIn. That's I connect with everybody. I'd love to meet you. Yeah, those are probably the two best places.
So that was Josh.